My name is Clara. I'm 32 years old, and if you had asked me 4 years ago what I believed in most, I would have said fairy tale endings. I grew up thinking that love could fix anything, that the right man would sweep me off my feet, and that once I said, I do, happiness would be guaranteed. But life rarely follows the neat script we imagine for ourselves. 3 years ago, I met Mark. He wasn't just a man who caught my eye, he was someone who stepped into my life at a moment when I least expected it. I had gone to the Corner Café one quiet Tuesday morning, carrying a John Grisham novel with me like I always did. Books were my comfort, my way of escaping the ordinary. I was so absorbed in the pages that I barely noticed when the bell over the cafe door chimed. Then Mark's voice broke through. "Hey, is that Grisham's latest?" he asked, nodding at the book in my hands. I looked up, startled, and found a man standing there with a smile that felt both confident and kind. There was something disarming about the way he looked at me, as though he'd already decided we were going to be friends. "Yeah," I said, a little shyly, "just started it. He's always a good read." That simple exchange sparked a conversation that lasted over an hour. We talked about authors we both loved, the way jazz records sound better on vinyl, and our favorite bookstores hidden in old corners of the city. It was easy, natural, like catching up with someone I'd known for years rather than a stranger I had just met. From that day forward, Mark and I kept finding excuses to see each other again. Coffee dates turned into walks by the river. Walks turned into late-night phone calls that stretched until dawn. Each moment with him felt effortless, as if we had discovered a rhythm no one else could hear. One evening, as we walked along the water under the dim glow of the streetlights, Mark stopped and looked at me with a seriousness I wasn't expecting. "Clara, I've never felt this way before. I think I'm falling for you." My heart skipped, warmth rushing through me, and I found myself admitting, "I feel the same, Mark. You're unlike anyone I've ever met." From there, everything moved quickly. 6 months later, over a quiet dinner in my apartment, Mark proposed. His hands trembled slightly as he opened the box, and my answer, yes, came without hesitation. In that moment, I truly believed I had found the man who would never let me down. But before we could get married, I met his parents. His father was stern but fair, a man who weighed every word before speaking. His mother, Linda, was different. She had sharp eyes that seemed to scan me from head to toe, as though she was cataloging every flaw she could find. Over dinner, his father suggested we sign a prenuptial agreement. I agreed, but I added one condition: if either of us cheated, the cheater owed the other $100,000. Mark seemed surprised, but also impressed. "I promise, Clara," he told me, "I'd never cheat on you." Our wedding day was beautiful. Friends and family filled the room with laughter. Music carried us late into the night, and every promise we made felt unbreakable. Our honeymoon in Paris was just as magical, walking hand in hand along the Seine, watching the Eiffel Tower light up, whispering dreams about our future. The first year of our marriage was everything I had hoped for. We traveled, we laughed, and even the quiet evenings spent washing dishes together felt special. Once, after a long day, Mark looked at me and said, "I never thought I'd be this happy doing something so ordinary." I teased him by splashing water, and he caught my hand, grinning. But as time passed, the fairy tale began to crack, not because of us at first, but because of Linda. She would drop hints at family gatherings about when we planned to have children. So, she'd say with a pointed smile, "When am I going to hear some good news?" At first, I laughed it off, but over time her comments grew heavier. It wasn't just children, she criticized everything. My cooking, my home, even the way I decorated the living room. One afternoon, she walked into my kitchen, eyeing the meal I had spent hours preparing. "Is this what you're serving? A bit simple, don't you think?" she asked, her tone dripping with disdain. I clenched my jaw, trying to stay polite. Mark stayed quiet, shifting uncomfortably, but not defending me. That silence cut deeper than his mother's words ever could. After one of Linda's visits, Mark echoed her criticism, suggesting maybe we should get some help around the house. My heart sank. "So you think I can't handle it either?" I asked, hurt. He quickly backpedaled, but the damage was done. Arguments followed. Small things turned into battles. The laughter that once filled our nights turned into silence, and the easy rhythm we had found together felt broken. One night, after a heated argument, I asked quietly, "What happened to us, Mark? We used to be on the same team." He rubbed his face with both hands and sighed. "I don't know, Clara. Everything feels so complicated now." And just like that, I realized, Linda's voice wasn't just in our home, it was in our marriage, in his thoughts, in his words. The woman I had once believed in, the man who promised he'd never let me down, was slowly slipping away, and I didn't know how to stop it. By the 3rd year of our marriage, the glow that once surrounded us had dimmed. Negativity seeped into the walls of our home like smoke, clinging to everything it touched. I could feel the unease growing in my chest with every passing day. The love that had once felt unshakable was now fragile, flickering like a candle about to be blown out. It began with phone calls. A name, Jake, kept flashing across Mark's screen, and every time it did, his posture changed, his shoulders stiffened, his expression turned guarded, and he avoided my eyes. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching TV, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it quickly, then set it face down on the table. "Who's Jake?" I asked, aiming for casual, though my pulse hammered in my ears. "Just a new guy at work. No one important," Mark answered, his voice too smooth, too practiced. I wanted to believe him, but doubt had already found its way in, and once it's there, it grows like a weed. Mark's habits changed. He started working late more often, his excuses flimsy. "Big project," he'd mutter, brushing past me as he straightened his newly purchased ties. His wardrobe shifted from relaxed shirts to sharp suits I had never seen before. He looked less like my husband and more like a stranger performing a role. One night, as he adjusted his cufflinks in the mirror, I asked softly, "Working late again?" He didn't even turn to face me. "Yeah, don't wait up." The emptiness in his voice stung. My frustration boiled over a few nights later. "This isn't like you, Mark. What's really going on?" My voice shook with anger, but underneath it all was fear. He sighed, exasperated. "I told you, it's just work. Why can't you trust me?" "Because you're never here," I snapped. "And when you are, you're a million miles away. Don't act like nothing's changed." He didn't answer. He just grabbed his coat, slammed the door, and left me alone in the silence. That night, staring at the empty side of the bed, I made a decision. I couldn't live in limbo any longer. I needed the truth, no matter how painful it would be. The next morning, I called a private detective. It felt like I was betraying him, but the gnawing suspicion had already broken my heart. If he was innocent, then at least I would know. If not, then I'd have the proof I needed. Days passed in a haze of anxiety. I went through the motions, work, chores, meals, while secretly waiting for a phone call that would either save or shatter my marriage. And then it came. "Mrs. Johnson." The detective's voice was steady but heavy. "We've completed the investigation. I'm afraid your suspicions were correct." The words sank like lead. He explained that Mark wasn't faithful. Jake wasn't a man at all, it was a woman. He had evidence. Photographs of them at hotels, timestamps of their meetings, even recordings. The truth was undeniable. I sat frozen, phone pressed to my ear, feeling the world tilt beneath me. The man I once trusted with my entire heart had built his love on lies. Still, I didn't confront him, not yet. Something inside me told me I needed to see the full picture, to gather not just proof of betrayal but proof of intent. That's when I overheard the conversation that broke me in ways the affair never could. One evening, as I walked past his office door, I paused at the sound of his voice. "Mom, I'm planning to end it with Clara after your birthday." My stomach dropped. His words were cold, rehearsed, as if I were nothing more than a business deal to finalize. Linda's reply was worse. "Oh, that's wise, dear. Just make sure she gets me a nice 65th birthday present before you drop the bomb." Her tone was cruel, dripping with greed. I staggered back, pressing a hand to my mouth, bile rising in my throat. Not only had he betrayed me, but he and his mother were conspiring together, using me one last time before discarding me like trash. That night, lying awake beside the man I no longer recognized, I began to plan. I would not beg. I would not cry in front of them. I would let them think they had won, until the moment I turned the tables. As Linda's birthday approached, I smiled and played the role of the dutiful wife and daughter-in-law. When she hinted at her celebration during a family dinner, I kept my composure. So, Clara, I'm expecting a grand 65th birthday. You must have planned something special for me, Linda said, her lips curled in a smug smile. I forced a pleasant tone. Of course, I've arranged a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant. It'll be a night to remember. Her eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Wonderful, I can't wait. Later, Mark questioned me. That's quite a plan. Are you sure about this? Absolutely, I said smoothly. She deserves something memorable. He nodded, puzzled by my generosity, but didn't push further. The night of the celebration arrived. The restaurant gleamed with golden chandeliers and crystal glasses, a perfect stage for the scene about to unfold. Linda beamed as she soaked up the attention, her voice rising above the chatter. Mark sat beside her, tense, waiting for his moment. Dinner ended, and the waiter presented the bill, $4,500. I slid my card across the table, my face calm though my heart pounded. I let Linda savor her illusion of victory. Let her think she had bled me one last time. Thank you, Clara, Linda said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Truly generous. Then Mark leaned closer, his tone sharp. By the way, Clara, I want a divorce. The words sliced through the air. Gasps echoed around the table. Linda smirked, adding cruelly, well then, I guess you should leave. This is a family gathering, after all. I stood gracefully, smoothing my dress. Without a word, I walked out. My steps were steady, my head held high. What they didn't know was that the payment had already been cancelled, the shared account blocked. Back home, I packed quickly, tears threatening but never falling. When my phone rang, Linda's shrill voice screeched through. The payment didn't go through. The restaurant called the police. What have you done? I listened in silence, then hung up. Their trap had turned on them. Their greed had become their downfall. In the days that followed, they scrambled to cover the debt. Mark had to borrow from his parents, humiliation seeping into the cracks of their perfect image. I, meanwhile, met with my lawyer, signed the divorce papers, and began closing the door on that chapter of my life. Walking out of the lawyer's office into the sunlight, I felt the weight lift. I wasn't the naive woman who once believed in fairy tales anymore. I was something stronger. For the first time in years, I breathed deeply and whispered to myself, "You're free, Clara. This time, the ending is yours to write."